Okay, y'all, back with another podcast. This time I'm joined by Osman, the bro who sent me word of the European manga magazine, and he's from Germany. So how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. It's really awesome to be on a Coffee Comics channel and Coffee Comics podcast. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, bro. So before we get into the European manga, what you think about it, how you found it, and so on, tell us who are you? Because yeah, you just revealed some information that hey, I'm actually somebody.
Yeah, I'm not sure about like somebody. I'm not somebody huge or anything, but I've been doing YouTube videos myself in the past, and I made some art drawing stuff. And I used to be on Cycross stream, where I was showing my webcomic, and I made a video about AI a while ago, which was pretty decent. My name's Osman, but on YouTube I'm OsJ, and I used to draw webcomics as Namzo. It's just my name in reverse. So Namzo Comics was something I was doing. I was entering pretty much all webtoon contests, and when I saw your videos like 1.5 years ago, I connected with that. You were talking about the whole rat race and dungeon. You called webtoons a dungeon.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I really felt that because, yeah, I used to enter every contest. I used to draw multiple chapters, getting better, and the dungeon led nowhere. So here I am now, though,
Mm,
talking about this thing, which I picked up in the store. And yeah, you
awesome.
can ask me anything about that.
Just to clarify, you were on streams with D. Sykra, the Canadian guy who used to teach how to
Yeah,
drawing. Oh, snap. That's pretty big. He doesn't post so much anymore. I used to watch him in high school.
yeah. I have a video on my channel OsJ, OSJEY, where we talk about PewDiePie's art progress. And back then, I used to buy his Patreon mentorship, and
Hmm.
that's how I got to know him. And then one time, he just asked me if I want to join his live stream, so I did. And ever since then, we've been talking once in a while, and yeah, just sharing our progress on creating comics, basically, or manga, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. Before we jump into the magazine, would you say, because I know his channel got hacked and all, but all those years
Mhm.
ago, I remember how people cherished knowledge on how to improve, their drawing skills and so on. And as we went past 2016, suddenly it became more about the spectacle and the hearsays and the drama instead of the craft. Like, did you pick up on this on and when you did, like what were your overall thoughts when this new wave was coming, when suddenly people weren't caring about the craft? And what were Sykra's thoughts in this new shift as well?
So basically, what I found was that everything changed when like artists like Ross Strauss became popular.
Mm,
Art became more of a just a show, like
mm,
clickbaiting and then having something interesting, a gimmick or anything. And the video was more based on that rather than um, making real art or showing the effort behind it. Everything was trying to basically promote art to non artists. That's what I found.
right.
And from Cycross' perspective, he was always a guy who didn't care about that. He basically happened to become rather famous on YouTube by accident because he was one of the first people. So he never learned the YouTube algorithm game or anything behind it. He was just about sharing his process, and that was it. So when things changed, his opinion on it was that the art industry, at least for YouTube, became kind of um, like about promoting yourself and not just showing what you're doing, right? You had to get a nice webcam with a nice camera and put on a video show with nice editing. And if you remember Cypress videos, he was never about that, to make some fancy editing to improve the vibe of the video and keep the viewer's attention. So that's why I also believe he kind of faded away from the whole YouTube thing. And he also drew a webcomic, by the way. He drew Space Waitress K. He put it on Webtoon, but I don't think if I can say more about what he's doing now. But yeah, that's somewhat of the last things he publicly did.
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, you can
go ahead,
finish.
go ahead.
You can finish off.
No, that's basically it.
Okay.
I know what he's up to now. He's still drawing, and yeah.
And he put it up on Webtoons. Was he expecting a return of investment by putting it on Webtoons? Because I see that a lot of people outside of Europe, because Europe has institutions for manga and comics, in
Mm-hmm.
Japan. In America, it was subverted and turned to dust by Marvel and all these other woke companies. And so I know he's in Canada, pretty much the same thing. But was he expecting a return of investment by putting it on Webtoons through Webtoons giving him a contract or generating a new following with the webcomic that can bring in some finances or so on?
Cypress, like, he put it on Webtoon, just because he wanted to have a finished product, and that made it feel like more official. I don't think he really expected much from it. More, he just wanted to do something like start something from start to finish, you know. And I think he was probably kind of like every artist does, hoping that it would get somehow popular. But nowadays, and when we get to talk about this, I want to mention it too. Since he's not really marketing himself like other, let's say, art influencers, because I think that's what most people turned into something like
Yeah.
art influencers instead of just artists. And so his web tune of Space Waitress K, he didn't do any marketing for it. So if you don't do any marketing for it, I mean, you can craft the most um, marvelous thing that you put in so much effort into, but if you don't put in the same amount of marketing into it in this Western world, you don't really get anywhere, really. And that's also, I think, a major difference where most of the time we think like the Western artists think they have to market themselves, but I really believe that something like this is really key, where the artist should only focus on the craft itself and let publishers do the marketing part, to be honest.
I agree. That is the whole point of having institutions. They handle the other stuff. It's the institutions that serve your product to the public. Because, as you said, Ross Draws, it all started with him, the little weasel. And now he got caught that he was using AI all along. Or, well, I remember back then he actually was tracing. But now him using AI is just, well, I'm not surprised. This dude has always been a weasel. But you're right. They turned art into, well, a personality thing. Art became secondary on that art channel. People were selling their art as merchandise for supporting me, my personality, and so on. It never became the focal point anymore. And yeah, that really did just destroy everything. But okay, so tell us, maybe you have additional information about this manga magazine over there, since you are in Germany, do you?
Yeah. So Manga Issho is a thing that you already talked about on your YouTube channel, that it's a collaboration between multiple European publishers. And as from my perspective, growing up in Germany, we grew up with Dragon Ball Z and all that stuff, like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, in the mid 90s to early 2000s. And already back then, a publisher was publishing something called Banzai. It was basically Shonen Jump just in Germany. And later there was another magazine called Daisuki, which was featuring more like girls manga in a magazine like this as well. And I would notice that throughout this decade, German publishers have tried to make German manga a thing, or let's say European manga. Because basically, if you look at it, the manga market is huge. And it's $1 million business. So what the German publishers always did was just license from Japan. But what I assume is you cannot make tons of money on just the license. So in these earlier days of magazines, they oftentimes held art contests, even back then, even 20 years ago, and they would enter like rookie artists locally from Germany. And maybe they were hoping that somehow those could get popular, so they have the rights to those IPs and make the entire profit themselves. That's why but it never really worked out. The Banzai was discontinued very quickly, and the Daisuki I think was discontinued in 2011 or something. So it only went for like 9 years or so. And since 2013, they only kept licensing from popular anime. So basically, an anime comes out in Japan, and they would license the manga, and then that would sell. The most sold German manga in over here in Europe, I think it was called something like Goldfish, and it was a shonen type thing, and it sold in Germany. It was the most sold one, and it only sold 15,000 times, and it's not a lot considering it's the most sold German manga of all time, basically. And then sometime later, a anime YouTuber was creating his own manga, and then he used his audience to sell it to them. He hired an artist, a very well-known German manga artist, drew a manga. It sold. I don't know if they broke the record, but they sold pretty well as well. And yeah, that was kind of the limit of German manga. 15,000 copies. You can make a living with on royalties with that.
Yeah.
So
Was
it
that
never really took off.
was that like a one-off graphic novel, or was it a whole
Uh,
series?
I think it was a whole series. I think they got 3 volumes.
Okay.
The stuff that sold mostly in Germany was like boys love stuff, because the artists were mostly girls, and that's what they tended to draw. There weren't that many like male artists around. It was like imagine that, like back in the day, it was mostly girlish to draw. So if you find a German manga artist, they would tend to like draw that kind of stuff. And so that was also often like selling, but yeah, nothing big, nothing that felt like something real. And when I saw this in the store, I mean, if you look at it, it feels like super official, and it also felt like holding this feels like a little piece of history. Because if I'm correct, for the first time, there's not a single like Japanese licensed stuff in here. It's fully just a collaboration between European artists, and it actually looks like manga, right? You already talked about it. And that's why I think just owning this is like owning a little piece of European manga history, like holding it in my hands.
Okay, and there are a few German publishers, like the character on the cover, that guy wearing the
Yeah.
hat. I follow the artist. She's German, and she has a twin sister. I think she's German. She is, right?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not up to date with who the artists are here,
Oh, okay. Well, do you have
but I think so, yeah.
a name on the German publishers that publish original manga?
Yeah, there's Carlsen Manga. There's, what was it called? I mean, in the back of here it says Ultraverse, I think it was called Ultraverse. Oh, hang on. If you give me a second, I can look actually all of them up because I was searching
Okay.
for them.
All right, everybody. We are getting everything we need right out of Germany live. Well, not really live, but live from me, right? So, Coffee Comics doing that research only here, only here. Oh, and make sure people that you go to Patreon and subscribe to get all the caffeine because you know that YouTube, you ain't gonna get all of it. You found it?
So basic, yeah. So basically, I was looking up the all of the German mangakas, no manga publishers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and there's I can send you the links later, but
Okay.
there's Egmont manga, Carlsen manga, cross dash Cold,
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo Pop, and I think then there's Viz Media and Darkos, but those are not German. Then there's a more somewhat amateurish publisher, but I met the guy at the convention like 5 years ago or so. It's called Pyramont.
Mm.
And then there's Ultraverse, Panini Shop, and Kase Online. Some of them might not be actually German, but yeah.
Yeah. Well.
So I think in this one, it's the publisher's Ultraverse, like
Okay.
Ultraverse.
Okay. Um. What have you tried to submit your stuff to the German one? Any of them?
Um, they actually have how to submit pages in German. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole guide on how to submit. But when I found out that the most sold German manga was only selling 15K units, I never submitted. I was banking on the whole webtoon thing
Mm-hmm.
at every attempt because that seemed like the better option to make a living as a storytelling
Yeah.
artist. That didn't work out. I can send you some of my work after this if you want.
Yeah. Definitely.
And
Okay.
yeah, and but yeah, when I read that, I was always getting motivated. But at the back of my head, the way it worked, I talked to some other artists. The way it worked was they would. This was like 8 years ago or so. Yeah, the way it used to work was they would send you submit your work, then they pay you upfront, like let's say 5,000 euros to work on this on a full volume. That would be like 200 to 250 pages.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get like 6 months to up to a year time, but usually 6 months. So you had to finish this book within 6 months, and then the book goes on sale in like every bookstore in Germany. And the royalties, the payment upfront, you don't have to return even if your book doesn't sell, but the royalties kind of fill in the payment upfront, and you only receive more money again after the upfront payment is like filled up. So you could only make more than 5,000 on your book if you sold really, really well. I don't know. I think I used to remember how much you got per sold book, but it wasn't that much. It was like don't like maybe I'm wrong, but it was something like €1 or something. I think
Oh my
it wasn't
goodness.
it wasn't that much. So if you sell 15,000 times, the most sold one, yeah, you get 15K probably, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly.
And
Maybe it was
that,
even half of that though.
wow, yeah. See, now understanding that reminds me how Image Comics and Dark Horse actually works because the guy I interviewed, the best-selling comic book author of 2023, he mentioned something similar that to be considered a bestseller in America as a comic book artist, you have to sell 6,000 copies. And ultimately, you have to, well, for some, they say Image, you have to pay back the money. But ultimately, the money you get back in 1 year after your book goes on the shelf is dismal. The bare minimum is nothing, and the highest, if you're lucky, could be like $12,000 a year. And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible. You can't live off of
Yeah, I
that.
mean, to put this in perspective, yeah, in Germany, like what you're about to say, in Germany, you cannot live off of that. You cannot. The that's you literally you can't pay for rent and food with that.
Yeah, and since I have a friend who lives in Europe, he's in Portugal. I had no idea how expensive rent and food actually is over there. It's insane, bro. Like
Yeah,
absolutely absurd. I mean, things going up everywhere. People dying here too. But that place, I was like, what in the hell? This is insanity. But okay, well, now it makes me wonder that the artists that are in that magazine, do they have a side hustle or what? Because clearly they are very dedicated to reach that level of artwork and to work within the schedules of the magazine, always meeting their deadlines. So, do you have any idea if any of those artists might be paying the bills with their stuff, or you know for a fact that not all of them are not.
the good thing over here is that we have a bunch of conventions like the Dokumi or Japan Day in Düsseldorf. Düsseldorf is a city. It's basically little Japan in Germany. We have
Okay.
like the most Japanese people live in Düsseldorf. It's near Cologne. Those are like two big cities next to each other. And in Cologne there's the Gamescom, and then there's Leipziger Buchmesse, also something very big. So a ton of conventions for artists, and so they usually go there. And I have another book by a German. Hang on, I'll get that really quickly.
Okay.
Give me a sec, because it fits in that to your question.
All right. We getting it all today, everybody. We're getting it all today, only on Coffee News. I mean, Coffee TV. This is going on Coffee TV.
So remember how I used to say that most German mangakas were girls that drew boys love stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't get me wrong, I just wanted to support the artist. I bought her books,
Uh-huh.
and just to support the German industry. And she it's from, what was her name? Mikiko Ponchek. She's a half Japanese, half Polish girl, and she signed it. She signed the
Okay.
book, and I don't have her drawing, but I also bought a original sketch from her. It's in another sketchbook of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to conventions, like these artists. They
Mm-hmm.
go probably to all the conventions, and they can sell their books there physically, or you can commission them to do a quick sketch for like 15. I paid for my quick sketch. I paid like $15. Probably it's more expensive today. And they sell stickers, posters, all that stuff, and that's how they make their living. I know a
Okay.
few artists who actually do that, because I went to art school over here, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's how they make their living. So if they make some money by selling the book or their volumes, they would never be able to make, probably never be able to make a full-time living with it if it weren't for those conventions where they can sell like stickers and stuff like that.
Wow, that's interesting because this goes back to something I once said on my channel, that you need to understand the environment that you live in, the circumstance, because the German circumstance allows the German artists to be published in an institution, in an establishment, and then there are sponsored comic events that are actually um, funded by passionate people. There's no agenda behind it. There's no garbage behind it. It's straight up people who love the craft and who love the material just selling their stuff. And the fan base seems to be a rather healthy, non-toxic fan base. So that makes more sense. But I know most people would feel like, hey man, if I'm published and I have to go to every convention throughout the year, that's like me being like a traveling circus act or something. I'm a performer, always traveling on a caravan, and so I
Yeah,
get it. I get it. That's not for everybody. I don't think I'd be able to do that. Like, heck no.
yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
Hmm.
to put it there's like on the convention there, within 3 days or so, there's over 200K people going.
Oh,
Like,
snap. That's
yeah,
actually like almost the size of the Japanese one of Comic Cat.
yeah, it's over a weekend. I think Dokumi and that stuff. Yeah, there are hundreds of thousands of people going there, and
Wow.
it's hard to get into that because it's you can only enter through a lottery system. So you apply that you want a table, and it's just a lottery system if you get the table or not.
Really? Lottery.
Because
Wow.
yeah, because there's so many artists applying to get a table, and
Uh-huh.
they don't have enough space for every artist, so it's just like a drawn.
Why don't they expand the convention center? I'm sure they
It's
can.
already huge. Like if you think like try to imagine the biggest like convention center space, it's that big.
Big as a football field or bigger than that, like two of them.
They're like a football field, or yeah, it's thousands of people. I
Yeah.
might send you images of that later.
In
Maybe you
fact,
can
now
put it
you're
in the
right.
chat.
The fact that it can accommodate like 100,000 people already is bigger
Yeah,
than a football field, like a
yeah,
normal one. So
yeah.
that
I'll
is
send you a picture
insane.
and you can put it up or something.
Yeah, I'll put it up. Okay. Let's dive into that book then. So when you were just walking around, you saw it in the shop. Which shop did you see it in? Where was it actually stationed? Because in the old days, you would find a comic stand next to the newspaper stand. You know, comics,
Yeah.
Marvel comics were just right
Mm.
next to the newspaper. So how did you find that one?
So I bought this in a Thalia store. It's just a regular bookstore over here,
Hmm.
a bookstore chain. Basically, it's a bookstore chain, and they have like an entire section for manga, and yeah, that's where it was. Like it was just lying there with like a bunch of them were stacked on top of each other, but it was displayed like that in a way that you can see the cover.
Okay.
So it's displayed next to all the volumes of One Piece and whatever. Like it's next to that.
And
We,
that's actually pretty important because I remember saying that, well, everybody, your stuff has to look like it belongs on the same shelf as, the Japanese manga. And that definitely looks like it belongs on the same shelf.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does.
Hmm.
It really pops. It really like stands out too.
Okay. So I already played the video where you opened it, but did you read everything in there?
Yeah, I read the whole thing. I can give you my opinion on each story,
Yeah.
but we don't have to go through all of them. And I actually voted my
Hmm.
top three on the page because at the end there's a QR code right here.
Nice.
You can scan that and vote for your favorite stories, and then enter your even add a comment on like not just vote but also type your review, and you have to enter your email so they can get back to you. So I assume maybe for some people that voted for something, the editors will maybe respond to them and ask them what further questions, probably depending on how well your review was written or not. I don't know. The
Um,
results of the votes will be released on 6th June. So that will be interesting for me because now I'm engaged. Now I
mm,
want to know if my favorite story will has the most votes, right?
mhm. Nice. That is proper customer engagement and involvement. I think this is how you keep a not a f- yeah, this is how you keep a fan base really, especially if you
Yeah.
want them to always be looking forward to something. The fact that they gave you a timeline that look on June we will give you some feedback. There's something that people are looking forward to. Instead of just consuming their product, they give you the chance to engage with the editors and possibly maybe the creators of each story. So, yeah, that's really motivating and gives the consumer an incentive to stay committed, instead of just consuming it.
Exactly. When you mentioned engaging with the artists, I looked it up. on a convention where before the day this was published or a day later or something, you could actually meet all the artists on here and get your book signed. So I think that's like using this local energy like creates this strong fan base to support this book. That was pretty cool. I didn't know about that, so I couldn't get this signed. But when I saw that, I think that's a really nice marketing and strengthening strategy.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, tell us your top 3 favorite stories in there and why. Hey guys, if you want to see the full video and its context, consider joining my Patreon. That's where the real caffeine is at. Cheers.